manufacturing facilities are located in Lafayette as well. The West Lafayette Greater Combined Community, Tippecanoe County, is the 27th fastest growing economy in the United States, according to Fortune magazine. 4 of those economies are double situated, 2 in the state, like for example, Dallas and Houston. So our economy here locally actually outstrips 28 different states. We have a lot to be thankful for. And yet, at the same time, in our community, there was a focus last year on food. And we had 2 or 3 different speakers identify various aspects of the fact that 1 out of 5 children goes hungry. And that there is a lot that needs to be done to make sure that those less fortunate in our community have enough to eat. What I have focused on in the speakers for the balance of this month is focusing on homelessness. There are a lot of people in our community who don't have a place to live, or they're living with relatives. There are families that are actually living in cars. It is a situation that there are a number of agencies. A number of agencies are aware of this. There is increasing cohesion and a unified effort to try to address homelessness in our community. And with us here today is Laurie Mann. She is the Executive Director of Family Promise of Greater Lafayette. It's part of a national organization that I hope to learn a little bit more about today as well. But it's designed to help families get housing and not be living on the street. She knows much more about it than I do, but I ask you to give her your time, attention, and our club's thoughts. Laurie Mann, Executive Director of Family Promise.
Thank you very much for having me come speak with you today, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you for having me. I think you'll really enjoy hearing from the other 2 ladies that are going to follow me. They're very good colleagues of mine, so I hope you can come back the next 2 weeks and hear Marie and Jennifer as well talk about this important topic. So today I'm going to introduce what Family Promise is and what we do in our community here. Family Promise is a homeless shelter and program that assists families with children who are facing a housing crisis. We are a national organization, like Steve said, and we were actually founded in 1989 in Summit, New Jersey, and that's where our headquarters is today. So we are an affiliate of that program. Right now there's over 190 affiliates nationwide, so we pretty much have an affiliate in every single state. There's actually 5 affiliates in Indiana right now. Our affiliate here in Lafayette was founded in 2009, and to date our agency here has sheltered 137 families comprised of 166 adults and 253 children. We are a 501c3 independent nonprofit organization. We receive our funding from a variety of sources, including state and federal grants, local community grants, corporate foundations, and private and individual sponsorships and donations as well. We generally host 2 to 3 fundraisers per year and participate in the local Homeward Bound awareness and fundraising event, if you're familiar with that. That happens yearly downtown. We are one of the sponsoring agencies for that. So let me tell you a little bit about what we actually do. That's a little background about our organization. But what we do is we provide shelter, food, transportation, and case management services for families while they are with us. Generally, a family is with us from 30 to 45 days, and 80% of our clients are successful in obtaining permanent housing during that time that they're with us. Others are transitioned into a more long-term assistance program as they continue to work on self-sufficiency. We serve up to 3 families at one time, and right now our capacity is 14 individuals. We are looking at increasing our capacity. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So we operate a day shelter downtown in the Lafayette area on the north side. In that facility, our families have access to shower, laundry, internet, and a kitchen facility. Our staff are there during the daytime hours to assist the families with what they need while they're there. But each evening, we do something that's a little bit unconventional and unique, although this is the Family Promise model, so most all of the Family Promises do this. Our families do not stay in that building in the evening. We have a partnership with 15 local congregations, some here in West Lafayette, some in Lafayette, and our congregations host our families in the evenings at their facility. So we transport our families there around dinner time. They feed them all together, and they have sleeping quarters for them right there at their facility. They spend the night at their facility, and they come back to us early in the morning at the day center. During the evening time, this is all volunteer-based. All of our volunteers are trained. We provide training for our volunteers. And so they get to experience that time in the evening with our families. And mainly this time is surrounded around fellowship, mentoring, playing games, assisting children with homework, maybe assisting the adults with anything they might need, job applications. They sometimes are in school and have homework too. So this is a nice time that the families get to experience this. Right now we have 15 congregations in our partnership, and we are always searching for more and wanting to increase that as well. We do operate 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And the reason we are so successful and able to do that is because of our volunteers, because of our partnerships. We actually only have 3 people on staff. I am the only full-time paid staff. I have a part-time assistant, and I have a part-time van driver. Everyone else is a volunteer in our organization. So as you can probably imagine, the volunteers are really the backbone of our organization and really hold us together. I get to coordinate all that, but they really do all the work. Let me change pages here. We also have developed a partnership with several organizations locally that we refer our families to, and they provide us with resources while the families are with us. These next 2 speakers that you're going to hear in the next few weeks, they are in our partnership. Obviously, we cannot solve every single family's problems just ourselves. So we enlist and collaborate with all the resources in the community that we can to help these families out while they're with us. Some of the things that they help us out with are financial budgeting, child care, housing placement, health care, and counseling services as well. Our goal is to help our guests address some of the barriers and challenges they have that brought them to us. So we want to provide them with the tools they need before they leave us, at least, in the very least, the resources that they need so they can continue on the right path after they leave us. Let me talk just briefly a little bit about our community and about homelessness, and Stephen just touched on this briefly. Many of you might have a sort of vision in your mind when you hear the word homeless. I know for me, growing up, that meant someone that lives on the streets. Maybe they have some type of an addiction problem that led them to this place, usually a single person by themselves. But the faces of homelessness have really changed, not only in our nation, but in our community. Families with children now account for 40% of the homeless population, and that is the fastest growing segment of that population. 1.4 million children are homeless right now in the United States. Even though we are one of the most developed countries, of all the developed countries in the world, we have the highest poverty rate of children. Now I'm talking about developed countries, not the underdeveloped countries. The average age of a homeless child is 4 years old. Most of the families we see have very young children. Currently, our Indiana state poverty rate is 15.8%, but shockingly, Tippecanoe County is a whopping 21.4%. We have 21.4% of people living in poverty in Tippecanoe County. And these are the problems that our organization and the other organizations that you're going to hear from are here to address. We're currently ranked the 3rd highest poverty rate in the state. So we do definitely have an issue that has driven the need for agencies like ours to address these problems. So why are families homeless? What is happening? Well, families are struggling with the ability to afford housing. They often don't make a living wage, or they live paycheck to paycheck and are forced to make decisions like whether to purchase food, medicine, health care, or housing. And sometimes when those things happen, housing gets put on the back burner. Well, when that gets put on the back burner and you're renting, it's not very long that it will take for you to come up with an eviction. And that's what happens a lot of times with the families that we see. It happens very quickly, unfortunately. Even though there are no easy answers to address these issues, and I cannot say that there's one solution that will end homelessness, but I do know that there is hope. Our guiding belief of our organization has always been that Americans are compassionate people that want to help those in need but may not know where or how to start. So Family Promise is here to give people a way to help and provide them with the opportunity to help, but also connect those that need help with the resources that they so desperately need. So that is a very brief description about Family Promise, but an overall, hopefully it gives you an overall view of what it is. I wanted to leave enough time to answer questions. I know I touched on many different topics, but I wanted to give some time to answer questions, maybe something specific that you have in mind that maybe I can answer for you.
What is the percentage of the families that you deal with that are single-parent families?
Good question. Thank you very much. About 90% of the families that we see are single parent. Generally, it is single moms, but not always. We do have single dads also. There has been an unusual trend in the last 6 months that we have noticed. That 90% is pretty accurate. However, in the last 6 months, I would say, we have had numerous two-parent families. I have a husband and I have two separate parents, two two-parent families, husband and wife, staying with us right now. And that has been an increasing trend. I'm not really exactly sure why, but we have seen that more than the single moms just in the last 6 months.
How do you find these people?
His question was, how do we find them? They find us. We generally don't have to go searching. The phone continues to ring. We are hooked up with all the social service networks. We are also in the 211 directory. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Actually, a woman called me this morning that had called 211. So 211 is a nationwide emergency hotline. Anyone can call. You can call for anything from, you're in a housing crisis to you need to get in touch with doctors, food pantries, anything. So we're in with that network, but more importantly, we're just very situated in the community, the social service network, so if people do call around, they can say, well, you can call Family Promise and get some help.
You mentioned the possibility of expansion. Would that be more churches or more people at each church? Or
Good question. One of the kind of constraints with the way that we operate right now, there's a couple of constraints. So with the way that we operate right now, with hosting our families at the churches, as you can imagine, even though we've done it like this for a long, long time, there are difficulties with that type of a situation. One is some of the churches only have so much room. So they would not be able to expand just because they don't have the facility to do so. And then also it's getting the volunteers to be there with them. We require 2 volunteers at a time at the churches, and that's pretty manageable if we would have 14 guests. But if we would throw in 20 or 30 guests at a time, that would be unmanageable for the volunteers to handle. So we are actually in the very, very beginning stages of a possible building project. And we are collaborating and hopefully going in with some other organizations that hopefully, possibly, we will have a building right situated downtown in Lafayette. And in that facility, then we will be able to house more families. We will still utilize the volunteers from the churches, but they will come to us instead of us taking the families to them.
You mentioned 23% or some number of low income, ranking as third in the state. Why would that be?
That's a good question. Repeat the question. He said the poverty rate, the 21.4%, he said, why is that poverty rate so high? I don't really have the answer to that. I do not know. Except the thing that I see with our families is if they are working, and many times they are when they come to us, they are making very, very low wages, minimum wage. You cannot raise a family on minimum wage, especially if you're a single parent. Even two parents can't raise a family and pay utilities and pay rent and buy food and buy everything you need on minimum wage. We do have very, very good opportunities in this community with some of our corporations. But you have to be skilled and educated to get the higher paying jobs at those corporations. So if you're an entry-level production worker, you will be making minimum wage. Maybe you will be making $9 or $10 an hour. $10 is a good job for the families that we see. And you can imagine even making $10 an hour, that's rough to live off of that. So my answer to that question would be, locally our jobs are not paying enough. We also do have, and I don't know the percentage, but I do believe we have a pretty high unemployment rate as well. I really don't know the percentage there.
We're worse than other counties. We're worse shape than other counties.
Worse shape than other counties.
Poverty-wise, yes. I mean, there are 2 counties ahead of us, but they're not very far ahead, not in the state.
I'd also understood that the rental rates are pretty high too compared to other places.
Yeah, that is a big concern. Because of the university being here, that drives the rental prices up. So even someone that's living way on the other side of Lafayette that has nothing to do with West Lafayette or the university, the rental prices are very high for a family. And most of these families that are living in low income, they can't afford to purchase a house. They would never qualify to purchase a house. So they're going to be renting.
I'm wondering how many times you find families in kind of a catch-22 situation where with public assistance they can't afford to work because their benefits and their housing allotments and things like that, if they work, they lose all of that. If they do start to get a job in minimum wage, they lose their food stamps, or they lose their low housing rate. How often do you see that?
That does happen. We don't really experience that too often because generally even a working family that's making a moderate income can still get some assistance. They can still get some benefits. But I know that is a potential possibility.
Question. Do we not have government-assisted housing here? And,
We do.
And how do they determine the rents on those government-assisted housing?
Okay, the question is, do we have government-assisted housing here, and how do they determine the rent? So there are 2 different situations of what we call low-income government-based housing. The first situation is what they call project-based, which is an actual complex. Here on the west side, it's Country Villa and Richfield, and over in Lafayette, it's Claystone and Cambridge, those facilities. So how that works, that's Section 8 housing, and how that works is the family with low income goes to apply. The problem, and when I first took this job, that's what I thought. I thought, well, these families, they need assistance, so let's get them into assisted housing. Well, the application process is very cumbersome, and the qualifications to get in there are really incredible. You cannot have any evictions. You cannot have poor credit. You cannot owe any other landlords to get in there. And that wipes out about 99% of the families that come to us. They're coming to us because they just got evicted or they have poor credit. Now, I won't say that we haven't gotten families housed that way, because we definitely have. Especially the young families that come to us. I've had numerous young women especially that come to us. They've never had a lease in their name. They've never had housing. Thankfully, they're young enough that they haven't screwed up their credit yet, and they readily do get accepted into those programs or into those housing units. How those housing units work is the rent that you pay is based on your income. So whatever income you're making, a certain percentage of that you pay rent, and the government subsidizes the rest. So that is an option for some people, but unfortunately for the clients that we see, it's not a very good option. The second option is HUD, and that is a federal program that's run through the Lafayette Housing Authority. And again, a family has to go and apply. And the way HUD works is you get a voucher if you do qualify. You get a voucher. You can use that voucher anywhere in Tippecanoe County as long as the landlord will accept that voucher and as long as his or her property is HUD approved. Now, the wait list for HUD right now is about 18 to 24 months long. So that's not an immediate solution for families, but that is a potential solution. But when a family is with us and we have to house them within 30 to 40 days, that's not an immediate solution.
Where is your office located?
Our office is in our day center, which is on the north side of town, 2203 North 19th Street in Lafayette. And I have brochures here, and our website is on there, my email, and our office location and so forth.
Do the churches that provide help for this situation, do they do this on a daily basis? Are they, in other words, my church handles some of this, and I frankly don't know how often they do it, but they don't seem to do it any more than, say, 1 week a month. Is that kind of an average for churches?
Our participating churches, we ask that they host 3 to 4 times a year. So generally it's about once a quarter. And when a church is hosting, they host for an entire week. They start on Sunday and they end on Sunday.
Most churches provide the food, and the people who are going to be there.
Yes.
Do you have problems with security?
At the churches?
In any place during the program, even in your downtown organization?
That is a good question. And that is another concern, and one of the reasons why we are moving to a set facility is for security reasons. As you can imagine, some of our churches are right downtown in Lafayette. The buildings are generally locked during the day, but we have had, or during the night, we have had 2 different instances where someone from the outside, someone from the street has gotten into the facility while our families are there. Thankfully, the volunteers were able to confront those people and remove them from the building. But that is a concern. As far as our facility downtown, we've never had any issues. We're actually in a house. We're in a residential neighborhood. We actually rent this house from group homes for children, if you've ever had them come speak to you. And we've never had a security issue. But we're just there during the day as well.
Most of the churches don't have 12 beds. Could you explain how that works?
Sure. So the way we set up the beds is we actually have the beds. We own the beds. They're portable beds on wheels. We have a trailer that we store the beds in. And the volunteers, when it's their church's time, each church has a coordinator that coordinates all this. And when it's their church's time to host, they go pick that trailer up. drive it to the church, unload those beds, put them in the church, and at the end of the week, they put them away. It sounds, when I first took this job, I thought, and I heard all this, you know, how they go from church to church, I thought, this sounds crazy. This just sounds so cumbersome. But you know what? It's like clockwork. Every church knows exactly what they're doing when they're doing it. These coordinators have been doing it for 4 or 5 years. I rarely ever have an issue. They get those beds set up. They're ready for the families when they come. They tear them down, go on to the next church.
Who provides the bedding and the laundry for the bedding?
The church provides the sheets and the pillowcases. We provide the bedding. So we actually have a grant, and different funders have funded it differently. We've had Subaru fund it. We've had Titmont, REMC fund it. Every guest, when they come to us, gets a pillow and a blanket, and that's theirs to keep. They keep that while they're with us, and then they take it when they leave.
So you have homeless families that come in. You keep them until you find them an actual place to live?
Explain the screening process, what you told me about this, how you screen them, there's the immigration, ability, justice, their background. Because you're
Oh, screening, okay. Sorry, he sort of came in and gave me a suggestion on this. So she asked, how do we get them housed? And then Stephen also said, explain the screening process. So we do a mild screening for our families when they do call. They actually do have to be in a homelessness crisis. Because of our state and federal regulations, we have to meet HUD regulations. It can't be a phone call that says, you know, I've been living with my sister, but we're not getting along, and I just need to get out of here. That's not homeless. You do still have shelter. You need to work that out with your sister and make that work, or find housing. So these are families that are actually in a crisis. They are in the process of an eviction. Maybe they've had something happen to their property, a flood, a fire, whatever. Sometimes it's a domestic situation where the spouse has left, the one person has been kicked out, has nowhere to go with the children, that kind of thing. But we do screen them. We do a criminal history background check, and the reason for that is to make sure all of our volunteers and the other families with the children in there are not going to be put in an unsafe situation. So obviously we don't take anyone that has any type of sexual offense on their record, any type of battery, any type of violent crime like that. That would be a risky situation for us and for our families. Then her question was, how do we get them housed? Each individual family has a different situation and a different story. Some families do come to us with income, and they just need that time to get some money saved up for their deposit and their first month's rent. We do partner with some agencies that do help with that. When you do hear from Lafayette Transitional Housing, I don't know if Jennifer will touch on it or not, but there is a federal program called Rapid Rehousing. It is a federal government assistance program that financially helps individuals that are in a homelessness crisis to get rehoused. So some of our families receive funding for that. Basically, that is just a little boost to give them the first month's rent, the deposit, help them get their utilities turned on, and then they can take over. When you are starting out and you have no housing at all, it's a very incredible amount of money that you have to come up with that many of us don't think about. But most landlords want, a deposit right there. It could be anywhere from $500 to $1,000. Then they want first month's rent, same amount of money. Then you got to turn all your utilities on. That could be anywhere from $200 to $500. So most families in this situation need about $2,500, $3,000 just to get housed. And obviously they don't have that. So there are financial programs that do help them with that. And then depending on their situation, they may qualify for some type of government housing. So we help them navigate through those applications, take them to those appointments. Most people just don't know where to start. And I would like to think that we're kind of the experts. We've been doing this for a while. So we just help them navigate through the process. And sometimes it's just finding a good landlord that will give them a chance and give them a shot. We do have a very good partnership with several landlords. So sometimes it's just helping them with that process.
Question. Oh, go ahead.
What facilities does the church have to participate?
Okay, he asked what kind of facility does the church have to participate. Most of the hosting areas for our families are just like in a Sunday school wing. You don't have to have any really special facility. Each family needs to have their own space while they're there, their own private space. You can take a Sunday school room, a classroom, any type of space, and turn that into a little mini apartment for the week. Just put those beds in there, that's all they need. They need to have access to a bathroom, and they need to have proper emergency and fire exits to be able to exit the building as well. But that's really all. Some type of dining area, some place for them to eat.
I'm curious, do you have any statistics on what percentage of the homeless people are immigrant to Tippecanoe County?
I really don't. One requirement that we do have, and I should have said this, I kind of forgot about this, we do require our applicants or our residents to be living or working in Tippecanoe County for at least 60 days. Because one thing we do see a lot of, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, because of the industry here, many people try to relocate here. But unfortunately, when they come or when they're calling, they have no place to go. They have no plans, they have no apartment. They just call and say, I heard there's good jobs in Lafayette. We want to come there. Can we come into your shelter? No, that's not what we do. We have enough residents here right in our own county that we want to assist. So they are our priority.
After they get settled into housing, I was curious, do you do any follow-up work with these families to make sure they don't get back into the same situation again? Or does that go over to a different agency to follow up with them to make sure that they have a budget, that they don't get into financial trouble again and overextend themselves?
Very good question. The question is, after the families leave us, do we provide ongoing services to make sure that they stay on the right path? Yes, we do. We have a mentoring program that we have started, and we train people that want to become mentors. Anybody can join this program to mentor our families after they leave. Now, it's voluntary. You know, we can't force the families to do it. But if they would like to have a mentor, and most of them do, then this mentor can stay with them and meet with them maybe weekly, maybe a couple of times a month, and just address those concerns. You know, how is your budget going? How is your child care going? How is your job going? What type of challenges did you have this week? What can I help you with? The other resource that we do have is the other agencies that we partner with. We do partner with Bauer Community Partners. They have a program called Community Partners where they provide free case management services for up to a year for these families. It is very important that they have some type of supportive services when they leave. They're not with us very long. We can't address all their issues, and we definitely can't fix issues in 30 to 40 days. We just give them the tools and the resources they need to access those resources after they leave us. So that's probably the most important part, is the follow-up care.
Is there a time limit on how long they can be in your program?
Yes, we are short-term emergency shelter, and that's the way we're funded. So 30 to 45 days. And we have kept families longer than that, but it's a real extreme case. Most of the time, families are only with us about 20 or 30 days.
Any other questions? Thank you, Laurie. Laurie, on behalf of Kiwanis, here's a notepad of a lot of things that will help you be even more efficient. Just to close real quickly, there is a screening process. Family Promise can help up to 3 families at a time. And while Laurie is being very modest, there are a number of families that are in very urgent, dire circumstances in our community that may appear from time to time. What her organization does is help identify those that are in a very severe crisis where immediate intervention and support will help make a dip in a cycle to get back on the right track rather than drop off the crevice into a canyon. And so she is the full paid executive director. There are a host of volunteers, but she literally spends her days and her weeks helping those most at need in our community. And so I want to give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. And to build on something that Lenny asked, what happens after they come through Family Promise? Family Promise only touches on a couple families at a time, importantly, and she helps coordinate volunteers. Next Thursday, Homestead is an organization in town that helps people try to avoid foreclosure, avoid having their mortgage taken away from them, and avoid being thrown out into homelessness. Marie Morse is the executive director, and she's going to be talking about a whole range of programs. This will be for informational purposes on how people are trying to avoid becoming homeless in our community. And then 2 Thursdays from now, the last Thursday of the month, Jennifer Layton, the executive director of the Lafayette Transitional Housing Center, will talk about government programs that are available. They are the single point source now for a pilot project, Rapid Rehousing. Lafayette, the greater Lafayette community, is a pilot project to try to identify long-term residents, not transients who have come into the area, but long-term residents to get them into housing and secure facilities here in the county. So this is all for informational background so that we all know what we're doing. But the Kiwanis Foundation in the last 2 years has provided support to Family Promise, and we wanted you to hear a little bit more about it. So thank you very much.